Okay, so today we are going to be talking about the circumference of circles. So first we need to know, well, what does circumference mean? So circumference is the distance around the edge of a circle. Okay, so the distance around the edge of a circle. Now if we think about what other vocabulary words we know that mean the distance around a shape, we think perimeter. So it's really just the perimeter of a circle. Okay, now it's not as easy as the other shapes where we can just add up the sides, because if you notice our side is curved, so we can't just line up a ruler to that and measure it. So in order to find the circumference, we use one of two formulas. So our formulas are C equals, for circumference, is equal to 2 times pi times r, or C equals pi times diameter. Now, in order to use these formulas, we need to know what the radius is and what the diameter is. So the radius is right here. It is half of the distance across a circle. Now, if you're wondering, well, how am I supposed to remember that? Well, what tends to help some people is radius, if I kind of turn this a little bit, kind of makes an r, a lowercase r, okay? Now, if we're wondering, well, then what's the diameter? The diameter is the whole length, the entire distance across the center of the circle. And if you notice, it makes a capital D for diameter with the circle. Okay, so our diameter is the distance across the whole circle. Our radius is halfway across the circle. Now, you will be provided with one of those two measurements, and you can use whichever formula you prefer, and we'll practice those on the bottom. Now, for pi, if you notice on the calculators we use in class, there is a pi button. It's located right here. But if we use that pi button, it's a very accurate, well, as accurate as we can get of pi, because we know pi is irrational, it goes on forever, right? But rather than using pi, we are going to use an approximation for pi, which is 3.14. So that's what we're going to use instead. Now, there will be instances where they want you to use a fraction for pi instead, and the fraction approximation of pi is 22/7. And we'll do some practice with that later, okay? So we're going to move on, and we're going to go ahead and do some practice. So number one, we are given the what? The radius or the diameter. Think about it. Look at your notes. We are given the diameter. So if I look at my formulas, this would be the best one to use since I'm given my diameter. So C is equal to pi times diameter. Now I'm going to leave enough room because I'm going to show you guys how to use both approximations, so both 3.14 and 22/7. So C is equal to 3.14 times the diameter, which is 10. So C is equal to, if I do 3.14 times 10, I get 31.4. Now, since circumference is just like perimeter, we do not square our units. It's just the distance around the circle. So it would be feet. Now, I'm going to do the same exact thing, but rather than using 3.14, I'm going to use 22/7. So C is equal to pi times diameter. C is equal to 22/7 times 10, because remember that's my diameter, right? Now, on my calculator, if I want to make 10 a fraction, I just put it over 1. I'm going to multiply across with my numerators and with my denominators, and then simplify. So 22 times 10 is 220, right? And so I get 220 over 7 times 1 is 7. And then I would just do the 220 divided by 7, and I get 31.42857,143. Now, if you notice, here I got 31.4, and now for this one, I'm getting 31.42857. I'll round it to the 6. Okay. Using 22/7, this is a more accurate solution. That is why you would use the 22/7. If you notice, if I do 22 divided by 7 on my calculator, it gives me a longer version of pi than just 3.14. But it will tell you which one to use. Always use 3.14 unless stated otherwise. Okay, so always use 3.14 unless they tell you to use 22/7. Got it? Okay. If you'd like to try number 2 on your own, you can. For the rest of them, we are just going to use the 3.14. All right? Here we go. C is equal to pi times diameter. Oh, what am I doing? Can I use diameter? Yes, I can, but what am I given here? I'm given the radius. Okay? A better formula to use when given the radius is C is equal to 2 pi r. But if I wanted to just use this formula every single time, think about what would I put as the diameter? Well, if the radius is 6, the diameter would be 12 because the diameter is just twice the radius. Okay? So if I were using this formula, I would do C equals 3.14 times 12. And then on my calculator, I'll do 3.14 times 12, and I get 37.68. And I know that's centimeters. If I'm using this formula, I just have to do one more step. I have 2 times 3.14 times the 6, because the 6 is my radius. Now if you notice, now I'm just going to double my radius. That's all that's happening in this formula. So C is equal to, whenever I double my radius, 2 times 6, that's where I get the 12. And then I just multiply that by 3.14, and I get the same solution. So you can see it doesn't matter which formula you choose. You can stick with the same one every time. If you do that, I would use this one. If you want to switch it up, it doesn't matter. All right, moving on to number 3. Here I'm given a diameter, so I'm going to use C is equal to pi times diameter. C is equal to 3.14 times 8.5. C is equal to, on my calculator, 3.14 times 8.5. I get 26.69 inches. All right, moving on to my last one. Here I'm given the radius, so I will use 2 pi r. C is equal to 2 times 3.14 times the radius, which is 2.4. C is equal to 2 times 3.14 times 2.4. You can just multiply all the way across there, and I get 15.072 millimeters. And that is how you find the circumference of a circle. If you have any questions, let me know, and you are going to do some practice identifying the radius, the diameter, and also the circumference. On the page that you are doing, there's a spot where you have to also find the area. Leave that blank, and you will be doing that tomorrow or Monday. Okay.